She couldn't hold on much longer. Her fingers, numb, trembling, wrapped around a frozen rebar loop were the only thing standing between her and the gorge below. 300 feet of nothing, just darkness and ice and the distant sound of water moving somewhere far beneath the frozen surface. Her boots scraped uselessly against the vertical concrete face of the bridge. Her right glove had torn on the way down. The bare skin of her fingers burned against the frozen metal like fire and ice at the same time. "Help!" she tried to call out, but the wind took it. The Bitterroot Mountains took it. The night took it. Nobody was coming. She had been a police officer for 6 years. She had talked herself through dangerous situations before, but nothing in her training, nothing in her experience had prepared her for this. For the moment when the ground simply disappears beneath you and the only thing left is the cold and the dark and the narrowing distance between your grip and the end of everything. Her fingers slipped another half-inch. Then, above her, a sound. Not the wind, not the creak of frozen concrete. A growl. Welcome back to Jack and Rex Tales. Jack hadn't planned on crossing the bridge that night. He hadn't planned on much of anything lately. That was the honest truth of it. Since coming home from Afghanistan 3 years ago, since the roadside bomb that ended his career as an Army Ranger and left him with a scar above his left eyebrow and something much harder to name living behind his eyes, Jack Thompson had reduced his life to the smallest possible size. A one-room cabin in the Bitterroot Mountains, a wood stove, a truck that needed work, and Rex. Always Rex. The German Shepherd was 8 years old now, with a torn left ear from a fence he'd caught himself on as a puppy, and a calm, deliberate way of moving that made him seem older and wiser than most people Jack had ever met. Rex didn't ask questions. Rex didn't look at Jack the way people looked at him, that careful, watchful look, like they were waiting for him to crack. Rex simply stayed. Every morning, every night, every dark hour in between. Jack had taken the shortcut across the unfinished bridge to clear his head. The night was bitter and still, the gorge below lost in darkness, the concrete deck glazed with a thin, treacherous layer of ice and snow. He walked with his hands in the pockets of his worn brown leather jacket, his combat boots finding careful purchase on the frozen surface, his hazel eyes doing what they always did, scanning, reading, never fully at rest. Rex stopped, just stopped, mid-step, ears rotating forward, body lowering slightly. Jack had learned years ago not to question that. "What is it, boy?" Rex moved to the edge of the bridge and looked down, a low growl built in his chest, not aggressive, urgent. Jack crossed to the edge and looked over, and saw her. A woman, dark hair, police uniform, one bare hand wrapped around a rebar loop below the bridge deck, her other hand clawing at the concrete face, her face tilted up toward him, brown eyes wide, exhausted and terrified in a way that a person only gets when they have already accepted that this might be the end. "Hold on!" Jack was already on his stomach on the ice before he finished the words. "I've got you! Hold on!" "I can't." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "My fingers! I can't feel them." "Look at me." He extended his arm over the edge, reaching. "Look at me, not down. What's your name?" A pause. Rex stopped. Just stopped. Mid-step, ears rotating forward, body lowering slightly. Jack had learned years ago not to question that. "What is it, boy?" Rex moved to the edge of the bridge and looked down, a low growl built in his chest, not aggressive, urgent. Jack crossed to the edge and looked over, and saw her. A woman, dark hair, police uniform, one bare hand wrapped around a rebar loop below the bridge deck, her other hand clawing at the concrete face, her face tilted up toward him, brown eyes wide, exhausted and terrified in a way that a person only gets when they have already accepted that this might be the end. "Hold on." Jack was already on his stomach on the ice before he finished the words. "I've got you. Hold on." "I can't." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "My fingers, I can't feel them." "Look at me." He extended his arm over the edge, reaching. "Look at me, not down. What's your name?" A pause. "Elena." "Elena, I'm Jack. I'm gonna grab the wrist. When I do, you let go of the bar and you grab my arm with both hands. You understand? If I let go, you grab my arm, both hands. Do you trust me?" She looked at him, a stranger on a bridge in the middle of the Montana wilderness, a man she had never seen before in her life. "Yes," she said. He reached further, his fingers closed around her wrist, and the ice shifted beneath him. His body lurched forward, the frozen concrete offering nothing, no friction, no resistance. He felt himself beginning to slide toward the edge, and there was nothing he could do about it. Then something grabbed the back of his jacket. Rex. The dog had clamped his jaws into the thick leather at the back of Jack's collar and was pulling, legs spread wide, claws scraping and scratching against the ice for any grip he could find, his whole body trembling with the effort. 80 pounds of German Shepherd becoming a living anchor between Jack and the void below. "Rex!" Jack's voice broke. The dog didn't make a sound, he just pulled. Inch by inch, with Elena holding Jack's arm and Rex holding Jack's jacket, they moved, backward, away from the edge. Elena's knee found the bridge deck, then her other knee. Then she was up, collapsed on the concrete, gasping, her bare hand pressed against her chest. Jack lay on the ice for a moment, breathing hard. Rex released his jacket and immediately crossed to Jack's side, pressing his broad, warm head against Jack's cheek. "Good boy," Jack whispered. His hand found the dog's fur and held on. "Good boy." Elena sat up slowly. She looked at the dog, then at Jack, then back at the dog. She shook her head. "He just held you." "He always does," Jack said quietly. They had maybe 30 seconds of stillness before the forest gave it up. Flashlight beams cut through the trees at the far end of the bridge, voices, low, urgent, angry. Then figures emerging from the darkness. 3 men, one in front, moving with a terrible, unhurried calm that was somehow worse than running. Pale eyes, crooked nose, a weathered canvas coat. Elena stiffened beside Jack. "That's Shaw," she said under her breath. "Garrett Shaw. I was investigating his operation when they pushed me." She reached for her radio. Static. Nothing. No signal. The canyon kills everything. Jack was already reading the bridge, the tree line, the angles. Old habits, older instincts. "Can you run?" "Yes." "Then run." They ran. Rex moved between them, matching their pace, his dark eyes tracking everything behind them. Shaw's men came faster than Jack expected. They knew this terrain, knew the bridge, knew the forest on the other side. A beam of light swept across Rex's flank. Then one of Shaw's men raised his arm and hurled something, a length of steel rod spinning through the darkness. Rex saw it. He jumped. The rod caught him mid-air and he hit the ice hard and skidded, and went over the edge. "Rex!" The sound that came out of Jack wasn't a word. It was something beneath words, something from a place in him that had no language. He spun around. Rex was gone. The space where his dog had been was just empty night and the sound of wind through the gorge. Then, a sound. Scrabbling. Desperate. Jack dropped to his knees at the edge and looked over. Rex had caught a lower ledge, a narrow concrete lip 4 feet below the bridge deck with his front paws. His back legs hung over nothing. His eyes found Jack's and held them with an expression that Jack would never be able to describe to another living person for the rest of his life. Elena was already moving. She didn't hesitate, didn't calculate, didn't ask. She went flat on the concrete beside Jack, reached both arms over the edge, and grabbed Rex's left foreleg with both hands. "Grab my belt," she said to Jack. "Anchor me." Jack locked both hands around her duty belt. Elena pulled, her face pressed against the ice, her arms shaking, her torn glove catching on the concrete edge. "Come on," she whispered to the dog. "Come on, boy. Come on." Rex's right paw found the edge, then his chest. Then with one final desperate scramble, he was up, collapsed on the bridge deck, sides heaving, alive. Elena sat up and pressed her forehead against the dog's neck and closed her eyes. "You pulled for me," she whispered. "Now I pulled for him." Rex licked her cheek once, slowly, deliberately, like a thank you that needed no translation. Jack couldn't speak. He put one hand on Rex's side and felt him breathing, and that was enough. That was everything. The abandoned construction cabin was 200 yards into the trees, dark, cold, no power, but 4 walls and a door that locked. Jack had it assessed in 45 seconds. 1 entrance, 2 windows, defensible. Elena checked her weapon. Jack found a rusted chain coiled in the corner and a length of rope hanging from a ceiling hook. Rex stood at the door, ears forward, bleeding slowly from a gash on his left shoulder where the ledge had caught him on the way up. He didn't whimper, didn't lie down. He stood guard with the quiet authority of a soldier who understood that the mission wasn't over. "You need to rest," Jack told him. Rex looked at him steadily and didn't move. Shaw's men hit the cabin 12 minutes later. What followed was not clean or cinematic. It was desperate and close and brutal in the way that real danger always is. Jack used the chain to take the first man off his feet. Elena handled the second with efficiency that told Jack everything he needed to know about who she was under pressure. The third came through the side window, and he came with a knife. He was moving toward Jack, fast, low, committed, when Rex launched himself from across the room. The blade caught the dog in the shoulder. Rex yelped, one sharp sound, and then went silent, but he did not retreat. He stood between Jack and the man, blood darkening his fur, legs trembling, and he snarled with everything he had left. The man stumbled backward. Jack moved in, and it was over in seconds. Then Jack turned, and Rex was sitting down slowly, carefully, like a soldier who had held the line as long as his body would allow, and was only now giving himself permission to stop. Jack crossed the room in 2 steps and went to his knees beside him. Rex. He took the dog's head in both hands. Rex's eyes were bright, still present, still clear, but his breathing was ragged and shallow. "Stay with me." Jack's voice was barely above a whisper. "You hear me, Captain? Stay with me." Elena was already tearing strips from the hem of her uniform shirt. Her hands moved quickly, carefully, wrapping the wound with strips of cloth and lengths of rope from the floor. Her face was composed, but her eyes were wet. "He's going to be okay," she said, not to comfort Jack, because she needed it to be true. Jack kept his hands on Rex's face, kept his eyes on his dog's eyes. "You've been with me through everything," he murmured. "You don't get to leave now, you hear me? Not now." Rex's tail moved once against the floor. Garrett Shaw was waiting in the clearing when they came out, calm, unhurried, a suppressed handgun raised and aimed like a man who had done this before and expected to do it again. "You've been a great deal of trouble," he said pleasantly. Jack held Rex against his chest, the dog's weight heavy and warm and real. Elena stood to his left, weapon drawn, calculating the angle. Shaw's finger tightened. The night exploded with light. The helicopter came over the tree line with its searchlight blazing and its rotor blades shaking the snow from the branches, and a voice booming through the darkness that left no room for interpretation. Shaw froze for exactly 1 second, and that was 1 second too long. Jack moved. The chain was still in his hand. It was over before Shaw fully understood what was happening. Elena had the handcuffs on before he hit the ground. The tactical medics landed 12 minutes later. They put Rex on a stretcher, a proper stretcher with a blanket and a medic who knew what she was doing, and began working on his shoulder with the focused, quiet efficiency of people trained for exactly this. Jack stood back and let them work. His hands were shaking slightly. He hadn't noticed until now.
Elena stood beside the stretcher. When the medic gently moved her aside to reach Rex's bandaging, she took one step back, but her hand stayed on his paw, just resting there, just staying. The medic looked at her. "I know," Elena said quietly. "Just one more minute." Later, Jack stood alone at the edge of the clearing and watched the helicopter lights fade into the Montana sky. The forest was silent around him. The cold was deep and clean and total. He thought about the bridge, about Rex stopping before he did, about the way Elena had gone flat on that concrete without a moment's hesitation for a dog she had known for less than an hour, about the chain in his hand, and the knife, and the cabin floor, and Rex's eyes staying bright through all of it. He had come to that bridge tonight to be alone with his darkness. He was leaving it with something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Not happiness, not peace, something quieter and more honest than either of those things. The knowledge that he was not alone in the world. That was enough. For tonight, that was more than enough. Real courage doesn't announce itself. It doesn't wait for the right moment or the right conditions or the right amount of certainty. It moves when it is needed, like a man going to a stomach on a frozen bridge for a stranger, like a woman reaching into the dark for a dog she just met, like an 8-year-old German shepherd with a torn ear standing between his person and a blade and refusing, absolutely refusing to move. Jack came to that bridge running from something. He left it carrying something instead. That is not a small thing. That is everything. If this story reached something inside you, if you believe that loyalty is still real, that courage still lives in ordinary people, that a dog's love is one of the most honest things this world has to offer, then subscribe to Jack and Rex Tales. Every story we tell is a reminder that even in the darkest and most isolated places, human beings still reach for each other, and sometimes a German shepherd makes sure they do. This story carries something rare. It doesn't just entertain, it teaches through feeling rather than explanation.
Jack's wounds are never visible. They live in his scanning eyes, his silence, his need for isolation and routine. His story honors the invisible battles that veterans carry home long after the uniform comes off, and reminds viewers that healing is never linear. Sometimes it arrives unexpectedly on a frozen bridge at midnight in the form of a stranger who needs you more than you need your darkness. Rex is not a pet in this story. He is a lifeline. Research consistently shows that dogs, especially service and companion animals, provide veterans with measurable emotional grounding and a reason to keep showing up. Rex demonstrates this not through sentiment, but through action. He senses danger before Jack does. He becomes a living anchor on the bridge edge. He takes a blade meant for the man he loves. That is not loyalty as a concept. That is loyalty as a living, breathing, costly thing. Elena's choice to pull Rex from the same void she was just saved from shows viewers something quietly profound, that compassion is not instinct, it is character. Who we truly are is not revealed in comfort, it is revealed in the moment when the ice is beneath us and the dark is below us, and we reach anyway. And perhaps most powerfully, Jack, Elena, and Rex were strangers when the night began. By the end, they had saved each other's lives multiple times over. That is a reminder that human connection, even between people who have never met, has the power to preserve life and restore something in us that isolation slowly takes away. Every act of bravery in this story came at personal cost. This story teaches that real courage is never the absence of fear. It is the decision, quiet, deliberate, and deeply human, to act in spite of it.